Have you ever wanted to just straight up quit your job? Maybe you're burned out. Maybe you're just not going in the direction that you wanted to or that you aimed for when you first got into your career. Well, Cristina Crouth, that's Crouth like South, she actually quit her job and is on a 1-year-long road trip through the United States from California to New York. She's managed to fit everything she owns into a 2018 Subaru that she has named Sylvia. She's worked in mental health and trauma for the past 12 years, and she believes in the healing power of storytelling. So now she's trying to share that healing spirit with her own stories. Cristina is on the uncommon career route for this year because she's taking freelancing and other non-traditional work along the way. Now, while we might dip into freelancing and non-traditional work ever so slightly, the goal with today's episode is to dream a little bit, to talk about her transition out of her full-time job, what helped her decide to take the leap, and how she's enjoying her trip. You get to learn some insights from someone who has been on their own road tripping it for the last year. Now stick around all the way to the end because I do ask her what her biggest insight is from this entire experience, and she's got some amazing knowledge and wisdom to share with you. Let's get started with today's episode. Cristina, it is so good to have you here. How are you doing today?
I am so good, Patricia. Thank you for having me. It's so good to be here, and I'm just so excited to talk about traveling and all the cool things today.
Oh, absolutely. I've got many questions for you. We're going to go well beyond traveling, but we're also going to get that fun adventure piece in as well. So to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and just introduce yourself to the community?
Yeah, totally. So, I'm Cristina. I feel like I have to start with my name.
Hello.
And yeah, I guess a little bit about me. I've been working in mental health and with the foster care / system affiliated population for the last 12 years. But a lot of things happened and it really inspired me to take a year-long road trip to drive across the country, and to see people I love and to really see a country that I've only seen so little of. So that's really, a little bit about me in a nutshell and what's been going on as of late.
Before we get into the road trip, because I think that's the fun part that we're all waiting to hear about.
Yes.
Before we get into the road trip, why don't you share a little bit about maybe how you and I know each other and kind of hopping into that transition of where you worked before and all that good stuff.
Yeah, totally. So I'm sure our version of events may differ a little bit of how we met each other, but my memory of meeting Patricia was probably at an outreach event of sorts. I worked in the Guardian Scholars Program serving system affiliated students who are trying to go to college. So we got to work together a lot to support students in similar situations and really trying to encourage them to explore options other than maybe just going to get a job after college and letting them know, after high school and letting them know that college was an option and an affordable option.
I remember going up to your office and every time we were going to collaborate on events, your answer was always, absolutely, let's do it. Like you were so open to opportunities. And I think that's something that struck me about you, but I just saw the tip of the iceberg. There was so much more spontaneity under that. And so one thing, to kind of carry on with that story, when I left my job, which was over a year ago now, when I left my position, I thought I was the only one kind of taking a leap, and I tend to take a lot of leaps of faith, but I thought I was the only one taking a leap. And then I talked with you and it turns out that we had quite a bit in common. One of those things being that you were also taking a leap, very much, at the same time that I was. And so do you want to share a little bit about what your transition was like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to start, I've always known I wanted to do this road trip. I actually wanted to do this road trip 12 years ago after I graduated college, but I think the hustle and bustle, I graduated when Facebook was out and very prominent. So seeing everyone be successful and doing things with their lives, I felt like I had to put that dream to the side and really focus on really answering the question, what am I going to do with my life? Where do I go from here? And so, foster care in many ways found me. And so my first job out of college was working at a group home, and it kind of just propelled and snowballed from there. About 5 years in, I would say I knew that it was time to explore something else. I just didn't know what that was. And then the pandemic hit, and like everyone else, it really forced me to pause and evaluate my life and evaluate and, really ask, is this what I want to do? Is this where I see myself and the trajectory? And that's really where I started to get the idea of honoring goals and dreams that I'd had for myself when I graduated that I just kind of put to the side, including this road trip and writing, and really trying to sort of shift a little bit and see if I could do all those things and be successful, which I think can feel scary at times. But yeah, I would say the pandemic was really the beginning of me beginning to forge and create sort of where I am now, but I feel like I'm still in the building, refining stages. I'm still asking myself, okay, where are we going from here? Which is exciting. And I'm trying to have that mindset of it being exciting versus scary.
Absolutely. I think we're constantly, no matter where we are, how high or how early in our career we are, we're constantly trying to find that balance between what am I naturally interested in, what's going to be, something that I enjoy, but also something I can be successful in. Can you share a little bit about like how you have found what it means to be successful for you and those experiences and how you're balancing the two?
I think I'm still figuring out what I would define as success, but I think as of right now, I am realizing that nothing is worth doing, and all of the wealth and however we define success, that doesn't matter if you're not truly happy. And I'm talking about true happiness, not, I think, sometimes the shallow way that we define happiness, but true contentment and knowing that no matter how hard it may be, the season that you're in, that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, that you're living out your purpose. And so I think success is doing that. And I truly believe that if you are doing that, the rest, and by the rest, I mean, fruitfulness and financial success and a steady foundation, that will follow suit. So yeah, I think that's really, if I had to boil it down, it would be that definition right there.
No, absolutely. And I think it's something that when you look at, let me go back a little bit. So there are different career theories that help to frame how someone finds career success. And if you look back in the 1950s, there was, I think it's Trait and Factor that talked about this career theory where you basically figure out what you have to offer, what the market has to offer. But the lens through which it was looked at back then was very much like, I get one job, I find the one career match, and then I progress all the way up the ladder through that career match. And now it's completely different, where we each have our own ideas and we think a lot more about purpose, fulfillment, and impact, like those types of things, like what do I enjoy, what's most satisfying. And I feel like while many of us are doing that, there's a lot of folks who are like, I want to do that, but I don't even know what it looks like. Like, I don't even know what it looks like to venture out and slosh through these murky waters of what is that blend of success and fulfillment. So I'm excited that you're taking that journey, and I want to dive into the road trip. But before we go in there, I don't want to get ahead of myself. What was the deciding factor for you? How did you decide, I'm going to take the leap, I'm going to take the jump?
I think it all starts in, I guess, 2022. I think that's the beginning of me. A lot of stuff was going on at work. And basically, at one point, I was in the position of running the program I was working in all by myself. And so because of that, I burned out. It was inevitable. And I went on medical leave for a while, which truly was a blessing, giving myself time to just take a pause again and evaluate. And so it was in that time that I was like making the decision that not only am I going to leave, but I don't know what I want to do next. And so why not do this trip? I'm not married. I don't have children. If not now, when? That's kind of been my motto throughout this, if not now, when? And so that was really the beginning of me planning out this trip. And trusting that through this journey, I would get those questions answered along the way. So that, I would say, is the beginning of me making this decision. And as a type A person that I am, I started planning and putting things in Excel sheets and whatnot, just so that I knew that what the plan is and to hold myself to it. Cause I think there's something, it's really scary to leave your job and to not have a plan, not have a foundation. So I knew that I would have to, like, that was going to be the way to hold myself to taking this truly a leap of faith.
You mentioned what I think is that speed bump that many of us are like, oh, I don't know if I want to take that route. And that is the financial piece, right? Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, not only during the trip, but after the trip. How do I come back? Oftentimes we see career gaps as like a red flag that we can't overcome, and number one, you absolutely can. It is not a red flag. You just want to be able to explain what you were doing and how you were growing during that time. Nevertheless, you've got this decision that you've made. There's this financial impact. I know we're going to go into that, with kind of how you've been supporting yourself in the meantime. But before we go down that road, I do want to jump into some road tripping fun. So explain to us, share with us, let us live vicariously through you. You're taking this year off. You're about halfway, if not farther than halfway in this trip. Share with us some of the fun stories you had or some of the things that you've learned being pretty much on your own throughout this country, just figuring it out.
I would say, first and foremost, there's nothing more humbling than going through your things and really deciding what is the most important stuff to take with you on a year-long road trip. I think that it's an exercise that we could all participate in, just because, we live in a time of materialism, and we live in a time where, everywhere you go, everywhere you look on Instagram or Facebook, you see an ad for the next thing that you need to own. And so, that's just something I feel like I need to mention, just the exercise of me figuring out everything that I was going to bring and not bring. But I decided to go through the South. My whole mission was to avoid snow, especially because I was leaving in April when weather can still be temperamental, especially in the North. I knew I needed to take a route that was safe, and I would feel confident driving through. So I got to go through the South, which was so much fun. I got to stop in Austin, Texas, and camp at a brewery for the weekend. I drove through Arkansas, which was my favorite state. And I love telling people that because they're just so shocked. They're like, Arkansas? And I'm like, yes, Arkansas. It is just probably one of the most beautiful states. It is just, you're engulfed with the Ozarks, and I got to camp at a couple different state parks and see different aspects of it. But even Hot Springs National Park has so much history and is so deep with the history of us having national parks here in the United States. So that was just really, really cool. And just getting to experience that and actually going and doing the bathhouse hot spring experience too. And then, I got to go to the Kentucky Derby, which was so much fun, and, eat and drink my way through the South, as I've been jokingly saying, but it's just such a different culture to what I grew up in. But it, especially as a Mexican American, to me, there was something very familiar. Just there are traditions of family and community and food. And so even though there are things that are so different, to me, there was just something that felt so comfortable and familiar to what I grew up in with growing up in a Mexican family. So I think that was sort of a draw, or it's something that really stood out to me going through that part of the country.
Okay, so Arkansas it is.
Arkansas, yeah.
I mean, just the way you spoke about it, I thought, okay, we've got to go back to Arkansas. Okay, so you've got these great road tripping experiences. How would you contrast, you said you were coming out of a season of burnout, and now you're in the season of nature and beauty and community and not having a schedule. Like, how would you contrast those for those of us who maybe haven't had that experience?
Oh my goodness. Well, it definitely requires a different level of self-discipline, which I think coming out of that burnout, I did not rush myself to put myself into, which I think made certain things hard. Like I am trying to take my writing a little bit more seriously. And that requires, carving out time every day to sit and just do morning pages or to revisit a piece I'm working on. And I think going from so much structure that it was killing me to no structure at all, I really had to figure out what that middle ground was for myself. But yeah, it's been really interesting now, working a little bit more consistently again. I recently got a contract with a nonprofit actually back in Orange County to support them with grant writing and having more of that consistency. But at the end of the day, I don't feel tired. I don't feel burned out. I feel really excited and I can go and do all these different things. And it's been really interesting to see my level of energy and just my ability to do more. And what I feel like I feel like I even have more on my plate now, but I don't feel burned out. So it's been like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. This is what life is supposed to feel like. We're not supposed to be so tired from our jobs that we're literally killing ourselves. We're supposed to have this balance and this freedom and this presence, and just being able to pour and also receive very, like a reciprocity. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but just like this continual ebb and flow of giving and receiving. And I feel like I'm finding that a little bit more now that have the schedule and sort of in the season that I'm in.
So it's nice to see that you have these moments that contrast so much with the work that you were doing and, those moments of burnout, which are possible in any position, in any location, but to feel that and then to have the complete opposite and try to find that balance, it's a unique experience. And so I'm grateful that you're sharing that with us. All right. So as we're starting to kind of get to the second half of this episode, I really wanted to tap into the experiences that you've had with freelancing and with non-traditional work. I mean, what was it like in the very beginning? I know we often think that we're going to go out, I'm going to be a freelancer and I'm going to double my income in 6 months. What was that process like for you?
Yeah. So what was it like leaving? It was definitely scary to go into the unknown, but also knowing I needed to have some kind of income. Fortunately, I knew that I had my savings to fall back on if need be. But yeah, I decided to jump into Upwork, and knowing that it was a platform for freelancers and knowing that I do enjoy sort of the consulting, strategic grant writing kind of realm of nonprofit and sort of taking more of a macro approach to providing solutions to these really important social problems. So yeah, it was definitely slow and steady and a little scary, but something I kept reminding myself of is like some of the greatest people and most successful people, especially in our country, were successful because they took these really big, scary risks. This really amazing documentary I watched a while ago on the History Channel called The Men That Built America. It's all about like JP Morgan and Carnegie and just they were very wealthy and successful, but all of them like took these really, really huge risks and put themselves in, some of them, very scary financial strain. But as a result, there was almost that willingness to try anything. And that was something that I kept falling back on when I would catch myself feeling scared or like, oh God, what did I get myself into? What have I done? Just knowing that, fruitfulness and success and what I'm striving for isn't going to happen or wasn't going to happen had I stayed, had I not taken the literal jump and leaving. And so just, I think the life I'm striving for and the life I envisioned, I wasn't going to ever get there had I not been willing to take that risk. And so I think now I'm, feeling more comfortable in that, but it definitely was scary to say the least. Especially telling people in my life that are very pragmatic, like, yeah, I left my job and I don't know what I'm doing. And just being the responsible one. And, the responsible one has now left, the building kind of a thing, I think that, and also I think my identity being so tied deeply into what I was doing and feeling like I lost a piece of myself. Like, what am I going to tell people I do now? Right? Like, what do you do when you meet someone for the first time? What do you do? Well, how am I going to answer that question? And just really reflecting on just my identity as it was connected to my profession. So yeah, it was very an interesting exercise. And how do I value myself? Is my value only in what I do? What is my identity outside of that? Can I still say that I'm someone that advocates for this population if I don't actually still do that work? What is that outside of that? Am I willing to try on different hats? Am I willing to say I'm a writer? All these different things that are now really exciting, but it was just, I would say it was a mini identity crisis in many ways too. I feel like I was rambling a little bit, but yeah, I think there were a lot of pieces to taking that jump.
One of the things you pointed out is that you lost yourself a little bit in your work. And I think that's very common nowadays, where we spend most of our waking hours at work, where we are, there's roles and duties and tasks that are added onto our plate that technically are adding up to 2 and 3 and 4 different positions. And at the same time, you want to do a good job. You want to succeed. You want to move up to the next position. And so over time, all of those things come together. And like you said, next thing you know, you're like, well, who am I if I'm not insert my title here? What was that like for you? Like, do you want to go a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, I would say for me, part of the scariness with my work and my identity was I loved that I got to be a part of someone's story, and not just someone's story, people that came from really adverse, traumatic situations and were trying to break those cycles and be better and do better for themselves and for their family. So, unlike I know so many people who not only are in the 9-to-5 grind, but hate it. I loved my job and was so proud to tell people that I got to, do this really cool thing. And so what does that mean now? Like for peeling back the layers of who I am and what my profession is and whatnot. So I feel like it was different because of the not only my what I got to do, but also, I do love working with that population, something I'm so passionate about. And no matter where I am or what I'm doing, I will always be passionate about it. But it was like, okay, well, who am I now? And I think it was a little bit different than I think other people's experiences maybe with their professions.
Yeah. And everyone has a different experience of what that looks like, but it's that same identity, like work as identity piece. And so as you're now, coming back full circle to you're doing freelancing, you're doing non-traditional work. I heard you say that it was sometimes a little difficult to say, do I say I'm a writer? Do I say I'm an author? Like, what does that look like? So here's my next question for you. As you've been going into freelancing and as you've been going into writing and other non-traditional work, you might still be figuring it out, but like what ideas or plans do you have as far as your return to work now that you're headed back home?
Yeah. So I think that especially now that I'm kind of got this position now that is potentially going to turn into something, I don't know, a little bit more permanent. I have really realized that I don't want to work full time. I think part burnout, I think full time makes it really easy for me to put other things on the back burner. It's a really easy excuse to use so that I don't write or I don't, fill in the blanks of whatever it is that I also want to do. So yeah, I really see myself at least for, for however long God calls me to work part-time, whether in the nonprofit sector, whether that's grant writing or in development, but really that being a part-time thing to ensure that I, have some income coming in, and using the rest of that time to devote to writing, because my writing is something that I've always wanted to do. And for many reasons, I've almost had a complicated relationship with it. But through the pandemic and through really finding healing in my art and seeing that some of the blocks where because of trauma I had experienced, really trying to like now pursue it now that I feel like those barriers and those blocks have really dissolved for the most part. And just really being confident in my storytelling and the power of storytelling. You know, that's something we always told our students at Guardian Scholars was the power of your story, the healing, you know, possibilities of your story, and, you know, really trying to take my own advice in many ways and seeing that I have stories to tell. And there are stories that deserve to be heard and may be able to help other people who are maybe in the thick of it or just want or need a reminder that they're not alone in whatever they're struggling with.
I was just talking to someone else, completely different context. We were talking about LinkedIn and what opportunities could open up, very different context. However, the underlying tone of what you're saying, it just resonates so much with this idea that storytelling it's a way of you connecting to another person, but you're not just giving like a flat message, you're giving a story. And to me,
Right.
that story connects on like such a personal level, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
yeah.
it's very much like we were talking about ripples in that conversation, but it's very much these ripples where when you write, you're putting a piece of yourself onto paper for someone else to feel something. Like you are causing feeling and emotion and, you know, motivation and behavior and action in someone else just by sharing your story.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, as you were saying that, Patty, I think for me, just the level of vulnerability that any art requires, but especially if you're divulging personal details of your life and putting it out, and almost it becomes not yours anymore. And, you know, vulnerability was something that was really scary for me, just growing up, and kind of my coping skill in the midst of things I had to endure as a kid was to go the opposite way, to build walls so high and so strong that no one could permeate them, but not even myself could permeate them. And so I think, you know, accepting my writing and accepting that that's the season I'm in is just really accepting vulnerability, but not seeing it as a weakness, really seeing it as a strength. And so really finding that reframe and healing within something that I was just so aversive to for so long.
That's insightful. A piece of me doesn't want to ask my next question, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Just go for it, Patty.
I'm going to do it anyways. So at the end of each episode, and the reason I say that is because, like, how do you follow that up? At the end of each episode, lately, I've been asking folks if you knew that hundreds of thousands of people would listen to this podcast and walk away with just 1 minute worth of the insight and wisdom that you've learned throughout this journey, what would you share?
I guess if I had to pick one thing, is that, you know, I would encourage people to reflect on the thing that they feel like is holding them back of being the fullest, brightest version of themselves. Because, you know, if they are holding on to, whether that's trauma or maybe it's just anger or, you know, whatever it is, they're preventing other people from like experiencing their full selves, and they're preventing themselves from really living out their fullest. And like for me, it was a lesson that took, oh God, many years for me. But, you know, I'm kind of like, part of me wants to kick myself. Like, why did I take so long? But also I recognize that it needed to take so long for me to get here, to this place, and to now like live this live out this season of my life because I'm ready to. And so I see so many people just so broken and so afraid of their brokenness. And rather than running away from it, I just want to encourage people to run towards it. And because healing is the most freeing, amazing thing that you can experience. And, you know, the possibilities are endless when you can really look at your stuff and deal with it and then move forward.
Okay, you totally you beat out your prior comment. Run toward it. Don't run away from it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Cristina, it has been such a joy to chat with you. It always is a great time, but now I'm happy that we got a chance to share some of what you've learned, you experienced, and just your general brightness with the folks listening. So thank you again for joining us. And before I let you go, there's one more question. This one's easy. Tell us how we can see your journey, how we can see your writing, how we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I have a mere Instagram account. That is my one place I'm posting everything, whether it's silly videos of the things I see, which there are many, or it's musings and reflections on what has happened or what will happen. That's kind of where I dump everything, is on my Instagram, which is at Christina's _adventure 16. But I think we're going to have the link somewhere, right, Patricia?
Absolutely. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cristina, it is always such a joy having you on board. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patricia. I feel like a real influencer now being on a podcast. So
there you go.
Check off that box.
Check. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We are so excited that you're here. Know that we love you. We're praying for you, and we'll see you on the next one.